Ever since the Fantastic Four took their first steps onto the printed page in August 1961, they've remained a cornerstone of the Marvel Universe. Serving as the company's first family, these four superheroes have been an ever-present fixture of the genre ever since their epic debut. And as a result, there's no shortage of beloved or iconic Fantastic Four comics. Whether it's the monumental 102-issue run by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, the work of writers like John Byrne and Walt Simonson in the 1980s and 90s, or more modern-day offerings by the likes of Mark Waid, Jonathan Hickman and Ryan North, this corner of Marvel Comics is home to some of the very best superhero stories around. I've talked numerous times on this channel about many of my favourite Fantastic Four comics. However, there's one series in particular that I often feel is overlooked and underappreciated, and should be regarded as an all-time great period for Marvel's first family. In 2007, at the tail end of Marvel's Civil War event, the Fantastic Four were taken over by writer Dwayne McDuffie, who, alongside artists Mike McKone and Paul Pelletier, had to reassemble this now divided family and create a new look team, using it to examine what the Fantastic Four symbolise and their place within Marvel's ever-changing universe. Running for 11 issues between January of 2007 and January of 2008, Dwayne McDuffie's run represents everything I love about the Fantastic Four. It's a brilliant tribute to the group's history, written by one of the most underrated writers of his generation, and helped reset the team's status quo for a brand new era. And so in this video, I want to explain the history behind Dwayne McDuffie's Fantastic Four, discuss how it came to be, and how the writer reunited this beloved ensemble after arguably their darkest moment, and why I think this run should be regarded as an all-time great period for the first family of comics. Before we continue though, just a quick reminder to leave a like on this video if you enjoy it, and subscribe to Owen Likes Comics so you don't miss out on any future videos. In order to explain the significance of Dwayne McDuffie's run on Fantastic Four, it's first worth overviewing the state of the team's comics up until 2007, as well as give some context of McDuffie's career up until this point. By the turn of the new millennium, the Fantastic Four were firmly entrenched as a main pillar of the Marvel Universe. However, while there was no debating the team's importance, their main series went through a number of creative team changes at the beginning of the decade. Acclaimed X-Men writer Chris Claremont initially co-wrote the series with Scott Lobdell, before Carlos Pacheco took over in September of 2000. Pacheco worked alongside Raphael Marine and Jeff Loeb until March of 2002, when Loeb began co-writing with Carl Kessel. Then, in October, Mark Waid was named the new Fantastic Four writer, kickstarting a now beloved 3-year run alongside artist Mike Wieringo. Waid and Wieringo's time writing the group is often regarded as one of their best in modern history. The pair crafted a near-definitive portrayal of Reed, Sue, Ben and Johnny that both hark back to the classic Lee Kirby days, as well as firmly entrenching the heroes in the 21st century. After Waid's departure in May of 2005, J. Michael Straczynski took over writing the book, teaming with artist Mike McKone. Straczynski's time writing Fantastic Four coincided with the release of Civil War, a large-scale company-wide crossover event written by Mark Millar with art by Steve McNiven. Released between July of 2006 and February of 2007, Civil War had major ramifications on Marvel's first family. In Millar and McNiven's story, the superhero community is bitterly divided over the Superhuman Registration Act, splitting up not just the Avengers, but also the Fantastic Four. As Reed sides with Tony Stark's pro-registration team, Sue and Johnny join Captain America's resistance, and the Thing refuses to take part and leaves for France. Therefore, by the time Straczynski concluded his run, significant questions remained over the group's future, and whether they could even reunite following the events of Civil War. This was the state of the Fantastic Four when Dwayne McDuffie was tasked with taking over the main monthly title. It should be noted that by this period, McDuffie wasn't just a celebrated comic book writer throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, but was also a lifelong fan of the Fantastic Four. During a 2007 interview with IGN, he talked about growing up with the 1967 Fantastic Four cartoon, as well as the original Stan Lee and Jack Kirby comics, specifically highlighting This Man, This Monster from Fantastic Four number 51 as a book that had a particularly big impact on him as a child. McDuffie began working at Marvel Comics in the mid to late 1980s, initially as Bob Budiansky's assistant, before transitioning into both a writer and an editor. He began working freelance in 1990, penning various issues for Marvel, DC and Archie Comics, before co-founding Milestone Media in 1993, alongside Dennis Cohen, Michael Davis, Derek T. Dingle and Christopher Priest. Milestone was devised to address the lack of representation for African Americans both on and off the printed page, creating all new characters while giving opportunities for black writers and artists to break into the industry. McDuffie served as Milestone's editor-in-chief and played a crucial role in designing many of their flagship characters, such as Static, Icon and Hardware. Milestone ceased publication in 1997, and McDuffie transitioned to working in animation. He helped develop the Static Shock animated series, which ran from September of 2000 to May of 2004, and even wrote 11 of its 52 episodes. Alongside this, he also wrote episodes for Teen Titans, What's New Scooby-Doo, and perhaps most notably, the DCAU's Justice League and Justice League Unlimited shows, with McDuffie either penning, editing, or producing 69 of the latter's 91 episodes. After JLU's conclusion in the summer of 2006 though, McDuffie continued to work in animation, primarily on Ben 10 Alien Force and Ultimate Alien, as well as DC animated films like All-Star Superman and Crisis on Two Earths, but he also began working on a handful of comic book projects at Marvel. Namely, McDuffie wrote the 6-issue miniseries Beyond, which focused on a team of mismatched heroes who suddenly became stranded on Battleworld, and 2006's Fantastic Four Special No. 1, alongside artist Casey Jones. Both of these projects saw McDuffie work alongside editor Tom Brevoort, who subsequently approached him about taking over writing duties for Marvel's First Family. Speaking with IGN, McDuffie explains how Brevoort approached him about writing Fantastic Four, stating that,
"I think as far back as when I was an assistant editor at Marvel, back in the late 80s, I mentioned that it was my dream book to write. It was no secret to anybody. Tom Brevoort was an intern when I was working there and we talked about the Fantastic Four a lot, what was good about the book and what we didn't like. I had very specific and very strong feelings about the characters on the title. Cut to 18 years later and I got a phone call. It was Tom. I had been writing Beyond for him and he said, would you have any interest in writing Fantastic Four? And I said, yeah. That was pretty much it. I was actually supposed to take over after Civil War, but Joe Straczynski got busy and couldn't finish, so I did the last 2 of those, which was really fun. And then I just picked up from where I was supposed to come in."
McDuffie was paired with artist Mike McKone for his debut issue, before starting a long-running partnership with Paul Pelletier. Having inherited a fractured team on the brink of separation, McDuffie reassembled the ensemble with both new and old members, using the fallout of Civil War as a catalyst for a unique and dramatic revival of the world's greatest superhero magazine. As noted previously, Dwayne McDuffie took over the Fantastic Four during the final days of Marvel's Civil War. As such, before the writer could execute his vision for the team, he had to wrap up the lingering threads for Mark Millar and Steve McNiven's event. More specifically, Civil War had pushed the relationship between Reed Richards and Sue Storm to its breaking point, with the couple seeming to be on the verge of separation by the time the main story concluded. McDuffie's first 2 issues focus on the fallout of these events, with Reed and Sue choosing to leave the group in an attempt to salvage their marriage. The Thing and the Human Torch are shocked, but Reed announces that while they're gone, Storm and Black Panther will be stepping in to keep the Fantastic Four alive. While these issues focus on wrapping up Civil War's aftermath, McDuffie's run truly begins with Fantastic Four issue 544 from March of 2007. This issue starts the writer's first storyline, which focuses on the New Look team caught within a cosmic battle between Galactus and Epoch. Here, T'Challa and Storm settle into the Baxter Building, which now serves as the Wakandan embassy after its previous location was destroyed. We get to see the new team bond until T'Challa is met by Deathlock, who asks him to investigate the grave of a recently deceased hero called Gravity. The Fantastic Four examine the grave and discover that Gravity's body is missing, alongside traces of a black hole. The team then visit the Watcher for information and learn that Gravity's body was stolen by an entity called Epoch. But as they journey across space to confront Epoch, they're interrupted by the Silver Surfer and Stardust, who state that they must deliver Epoch to Galactus. This results in a fight between the Fantastic Four and the 2 Heralds, until it's revealed that Epoch did indeed steal Gravity's body in order to resurrect him as the universe's protector. And now revived Gravity swears to protect Epoch from Galactus, attacking the Eater of Worlds, while Black Black Panther reveals a secret device he built to face off against Galactus. T'Challa gives this to Johnny, which he uses to absorb the Silver Surfer's power cosmic, as gravity transports both heralds to the other side of the universe. Sensing defeat and aware of gravity's extreme power, Galactus agrees to spare Epoch, and as a thank you, the young hero channels his cosmic abilities and uses them to feed Galactus. Epoch thanks Gravity and the Four for saving her, but Gravity chooses to renounce his newfound powers and states that he simply wants to return to Earth. In McDuffie and Peltier's second story arc, we catch up with Reed and Sue holidaying on the moon of Titan. This is interrupted though when they witness a meteor hurtling towards Earth. The pair investigate and discover that the meteor is made from advanced technology. With Sue's blessing, Reed returns to Earth and seeks help from Hank Pym, where the two discover that a message hidden within the meteor is from the alien race of the Odotopians. The Odotopians explain that they have been attacked by the Contracepsis, who plan on targeting Earth next. Reed takes this information to the Baxter building. However, they suddenly receive a distress call from Titan, revealing that Sue has been kidnapped by the Frightful Four. The five heroes rush to Titan to try and save the Invisible Woman. Once they arrive and start fighting the villains though, they're ambushed by Ulysses Claw, who unleashes a sonic blast that incapacitates the heroes. Claw taunts T'Challa as the Frightful Four declare victory, until Black Panther reveals that he fitted sonic-proof earplugs into the team's communication devices. The Fantastic Four are then able to regroup and fend off the foes, with Sue breaking free from her captivity and unleashing her full power on the wizard, even threatening at one point to stop his heart. With the heroes reunited, Sue joins Reed and the Fantastic Four as they race to answer the Odotopians' distress signal. Once they arrive though, they discover a tear in time and space and are swarmed by a Contracepsis armada. Reed and T'Challa activate a secret weapon given to them by the Odotopians. Although this does banish the Contracepsis, it causes the tear to become even bigger. Black Panther then summons the Silver Surfer, who despite their previous encounter, reluctantly agrees to guide the heroes through the tear, where they find Doctor Strange battling the remaining Contracepsis. Strange explains that these beings actually protect the physical universe, but now Eternity, the embodiment of the universe, is slowly dying. He theorizes that a piece of space-time has become infected, and he must remove it to save Eternity and quell the Contracepsis attack. The Watcher then appears and summons Gravity from Earth, who uses his powers to aid Strange in performing surgery on the universe. Eternity is subsequently saved and the Contracepsis retreat, with the Fantastic Four returning to Earth. Here, Reed and Sue joke that their honeymoon is over, while Storm and T'Challa announce their time with the Fantastic Four is done. The pair thank the family for allowing them to stay in their building, and they were honoured to briefly fight alongside them. The two heroes leave, and the classic Fantastic Four is officially reunited. The final two issues of McDuffie's Fantastic Four run, focusing on the reformed team facing off against a threat from the future. After returning home from a fight with Diablo, Sue and Ben are confronted by Namor and Black Panther, who claim to have travelled back from 60 years in the future. Doctor Doom appears beside them wearing an advanced armour and states that their timeline has been destroyed by Mr. Fantastic. Sue struggles to believe the trio's claims, while Reed enters the room and shockingly shoots Namor in the head. T'Challa then attacks Reed, with Sue intervening and unintentionally killing him. The Thing then notices that Panther and Namor are actually robots, and realising that Doom is somehow trying to trick them. Victor confesses, but claims his statements about Reed are true. He says that Reed attempted to save the world through 100 plans, only for them to fail, and his 101st plan was world domination. The Fantastic Four scoff at this, but Doom reminds them of Reed's actions during Civil War, such as creating Prison 42, building an illegal clone of Thor, and thereby causing the death of Goliath, claiming that these actions prove that Reed is destined to become a tyrant. A fight breaks out between the Fantastic Four and Doom, until another group of time travellers appear before them, these ones being the Fantastic Four themselves. The four futuristic doppelgangers explain the state of their world. Reed was able to successfully create a utopian society, causing Doom to travel back in time and thwart his plans, so that he could instead become Earth's saviour. Despite being surrounded, Victor refuses to surrender and asks the present-day Fantastic Four to grant him asylum. Instead though, the two Reeds fight and discuss how alternate realities work, theorising that new timelines are created by massive disruptions in reality, and that Doom was actually trying to erase the timeline that he's from. Therefore, instead of taking him back to their timeline, the future Fantastic Four present a different idea. They teleport Doom to a different universe, one where all of its heroes are dead and he can be their protector. With Victor gone, the two Fantastic Four teams say goodbye, with the older Reed wishing his younger self the best of luck in solving everything. As the heroes watch their counterparts leave, Sue embraces Reed and asks how many people they will need to truly change the world. Reed smiles and simply replies, 4. Following the release of Fantastic Four number 553 in January of 2008, Dwayne McDuffie would exit the series. In his place, Mark Millar and Brian Hitch would take over the series, briefly alongside co-writer Joe Ahern, with their run lasting until the summer of 2009. Jonathan Hickman would take over writing Fantastic Four that same August, with his run incorporating many of the ideas established throughout McDuffie's tenure, particularly Reed Richards' growing mission to solve everything, and how that eventually leads into not only the discovery of the Council of Reeds, but eventually the incursions and secret wars. While the Fantastic Four's comics remained in a great place during Hickman's tenure, McDuffie moved over to working largely at DC. He had already begun writing Justice League by the time he finished up on Fantastic Four, but he continued to work on that title, as well as writing the Milestone Forever miniseries, which reintroduced many of the characters he had helped create 2 decades earlier. McDuffie also continued to write projects for DC Animation, namely 2010's Justice League Crisis on Two Earths and the 2011 adaptation of Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman. Dwayne McDuffie would sadly pass away in February of 2011, only 2 days after his 49th birthday. While his death was undoubtedly tragic, the body of work he had left behind in comics and animation cemented him as an era-defining writer, and someone who had helped shape the childhoods of an entire generation. Although McDuffie wrote a ton of great comics throughout his career, his tenure on Fantastic Four has always remained a personal highlight for me. Despite being only 11 issues in length, Dwayne McDuffie's run is the first family at their very best, and helped to repair the team's perception in the aftermath of Civil War, inheriting a team on the brink of separation, with Sue and Reed being particularly distant following the former's recent actions. McDuffie builds off this polarising story and tells a brilliant tale about these two characters finding both themselves and each other once again. Much of the run splits its page time between spotlighting the group's adventures and showcasing Reed and Sue reconnecting as a couple. I think this approach was essential, as Miller's portrayal of Reed in Civil War to me felt incredibly out of character, and emphasised the worst stereotypes of Mr. Fantastic as a cold, sterile and distant partner. The final few issues of McDuffie's tenure feel like a direct commentary on these perceptions, with Doom bringing up Reed's recent actions and forcing him to prove that they don't define who he is. Moreover, the unique team dynamic with Storm and Black Panther makes for a really memorable and unique series. T'Challa in particular brings such an engaging dynamic to the group. While he's incredibly intelligent, much like Reed, he's also a far more daring and headstrong leader, demonstrated by such moments as him wielding the ultimate nullifier when attempting to get information from the Watcher, and even being willing to face off against Galactus. Storm also gets some great moments to shine here, albeit not as many as I would have hoped. Still, it's fascinating to see her be part of a team not related to the X-Men, and interact with a whole new cast of characters with their own unique dynamic. Although the couple's time as part of the Fantastic Four was only a handful of issues, I think their presence helped make this run feel both fresh and distinct. At the same time, the issues where Reed and Sue are once again part of the group feel so quintessential and classic Fantastic Four. It should also be noted that McDuffie worked closely with Reginald Hudland and Francis Portela, who were working on Black Panther during this period. As a result, the Fantastic Four made regular appearances in that title throughout issues 26 through 34. These comics serve as a great continuation of what McDuffie and Pelletier were doing in the group's main series. The highlight of this crossover was the For the Hard Way storyline, which saw the heroes encounter the undead horde from Marvel Zombies who had gained the combined power of Galactus. In addition to this crossover, McDuffie used Fantastic Four to continue themes, characters and ideas that he had established in his earlier Marvel works. Seeing characters like Deathlock and Gravity play notable roles in these comics was a lot of fun and clearly a proud moment for the writer, making it not only a great reset of the first family, but a fitting continuation of his wider body of work. When considering the legacy of this series, both within the modern history of the Fantastic Four and in Dwayne McDuffie's wider career, I sat down with Retro Reviews Comics and Kirby from Comic Krackle to get their thoughts on these books. We ended up speaking for over 2 hours, and the full video is up on my Patreon, but here's what they had to say about how McDuffie's run should be remembered. I've been thinking a lot about this in the context of the new movie coming out and the Fantastic Four having a bit of a cultural renaissance at the moment, because of things like Marvel Rivals and the film and the new comics that Ryan North's been doing. Like, it feels like they're the biggest they've been since like Hickman, at least in the last decade. it got me thinking about this series in particular and how it is kind of like the nucleus and the starting point of this kind of modern era. I was really interested in getting both of your guys' thoughts on kind of what the legacy of this run is, what your overall feelings looking back at it is, and kind of what this says about the importance and the status and the role of the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Universe.
I feel like in a lot of ways where people look at Wade and Ringo as the modern like Fantastic Four, I feel like looking back, this should be like what people look to as sort of that big turning point of like, this is what the Fantastic Four look like in the 21st century. And the way, like you said, the way like it practically lays the foundation for Hickman's run, and the way that it seemingly inspires Ryan North's run, with it being so balanced as far as like how all the characters are written, how like high sci-fi it is as well. Like it has all of those elements, while also even with the fact of having like T'Challa and Storm in there, it's spotlighting that like family aspect so much. And yeah, it does feel like a nuclear spark. It does feel like a nuclear spark for that 21st century. What does the Fantastic Four really look like? If you wanted to like give this to somebody, I think this run is that, because it is that perfect modernization of the Kirby stuff and setting this up for the rest of like the rest of like the 2000s, really, up until Hickman leaves, up until Secret Wars. Like it really does lay that foundation so perfectly and really characterizes this team so well. It's a prototypical like Fantastic Four run, to say the least. It's amazing. Like that's what its legacy, at least for me, that's how I look at it looking back. And this being a run that I recently read, this is how I view it, like truly.
I mean, a lot of just echoing the same sentiments. It's a modernization, you know. If you're a Daredevil fan, for example, a lot of people will tell you start with Bendis. That's the modern era continuation, and then you can go from there. And honestly, everybody reads Civil War. So jumping from there, and you read this, and then you just go forward. And I feel like the lasting effects, I feel like everybody's trying to recapture what McDuffie was doing, because a lot of writers fall into the camp of wanting to do their version of somebody else. And McDuffie did that. Hit the nail on the head for, I'm not trying to be Lee and Kirby, right? I am taking their ethos and I'm incorporating it with my version of telling that story. And that's something that I feel like creators can benefit from moving forward. Hickman did it, like we were talking about before. Ryan North is doing it currently. I think Ram V is incorporating that with the New Gods and taking those ideas that Kirby was presenting and using that to not just retell his story, but how do I tell those similar ideas in the way that only I can tell them? And I think that great creators can learn a lot from this series in particular.
If I had to rank my all-time favourite Fantastic Four runs, Dwayne McDuffie's time would certainly be up there. While it's by no means the longest or most comprehensive run, lasting only 11 issues, I think it's an incredible encapsulation of who all of these characters are, as well as why the Fantastic Four have endured and remained so iconic for over 50 years. It brought the team back to their roots following a turbulent period during Civil War, helping to reset their status quo while still pushing them into new and unexpected directions, with new members joining the team and helping to lay the foundation for an incredible period for Fantastic Four comics that came in this run's aftermath. So with the Fantastic Four back in the forefront of popular culture, thanks to their latest film and the incredible run of recent comics, I think now is the ideal time to go back and revisit this often overlooked period of the team's history and give it the appreciation that it truly deserves. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to leave a like on this video and also leave a comment down below as well. Let me know your thoughts on everything we talked about in today's video. I can't wait to hear what you have to say as always. If you're new to Owen Likes Comics, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notify bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you enjoyed this and you want some more, there should be some other videos on screen right now that you might also enjoy. If you want to help support the channel and help me make more videos, you can do so by going over to patreon.com/OwenLikesComics. Or if you just want some more of me, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram and Blue Sky, just at Owen Likes Comics. But that's all for this video. Again, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you next time. But until then, take care and keep reading.